Hey, what is going on everyone, and welcome back to Too Much Tech. And in today's video we're going to be reviewing the Stellar65 keyboard as well as the Stellar 12 macro pad from Space Cables. The Stellar series are stacked acrylic boards that are designed by Clavier, and the 65 in specific featuring that cluster of 4 keys at the top right of the keyboard. The only other keyboard that I've seen that isn't super expensive being the Ducky and Varmilla Maya Pro, which is not, the same thing. Obviously that's more of a production board. This is a board that's something that's an alternative to something like a Tofu 60 or 65 if you want all that RGB goodness on your desk, because this does have a lot of value. It's not necessarily cheap and easy to build, but it is definitely doable even for beginners. Inside the box you're gonna find a black and gold PCB designed by Yankar that features USB Type-C, underglow RGB, as well as per key RGB lighting that you can control through VIA as well, which is really nice. I'm glad that this is VIA compatible, super easy to remap all your keybinds on the board. Of course, all the acrylic pieces for the board itself, as well as the additional acrylic pieces for the 6 and 8 degree typing angles, along with the hardware included that you will need, as well as a tiny little Allen wrench that you can use for all the hex screws. And that's it. You do have to supply your own stabs, switches, and keycaps, which isn't really the end of the world. Probably something to expect, especially in the case of higher end custom boards. This is more of a entry level enthusiast board, I would say, but I don't think it's the end of the world, because I would rather them offer a lower price than charge a little bit more for accessories that you may or may not use. For this build, I decided to go with some Moshery stabilizers that I'm using for the first time from Prevail Key Company, link in the description below. They are in cyan and purple, and they do have other colors available as well, which is pretty cool. I thought it would be nice to spice it up a little bit. Gold wires, lubed up with Krytox 205 grade 0, and then I also use the XHT BDZ for the stabilizer wires that Space has available on their website as well. So if you want to add some to your car, I would highly recommend it, because it is supposed to make your stabilizer wires a lot more stable and less prone to movement and rattle, and I do believe that it helps out quite a bit. But just remember not to use this on the rest of your stabilizers. Use Krytex to lube your stab housings and stems. And then I'm going to be using C3 banana splits for these switches, lubed with Krytox 205 grade 0 and filmed with TX switch films, and a keycap set which the name is evading me at the moment, but it's from Taihao, and I'll leave it linked in the description below. Putting it together took about 2 hours total, which isn't really bad, especially for my first stacked acrylic board. So if I can do it, I definitely know that you guys can do it. It took me a little bit of time to put it together properly, but to make it easier for you, here's what you should do. The first thing I would do as soon as you get a new PCB, plug it in with a USB Type-C cable. I would grab some tweezers and I would open VIA on your computer and check and make sure that each of the slots work before you go through all the work of soldering your board together, just to find out that your A key doesn't work. And once you've tested your PCB, I would then start to build your keyboard. The next thing that you're going to want to do is grab the 2 layers that have all the cutouts for all these switches, place your switches in there along with your PCB, and make sure that all your pins are straight. That way when you solder keyboard together in the next step, it's very easy. You don't have to worry about any bent pins. If they are bent, just make sure to bend them straight. But after you got those switches aligned and inside those acrylic switches and the PCB, I will flip it over, go ahead and solder your board together, which shouldn't take you much longer than about 20 to 25 minutes for your first time. The next thing I would do is attach all those gold hex pieces to the top plate and then begin your assembly process. So take all 8 screws, attach all those gold hex pieces and screw them in about halfway. And then once you do that, you're going to want to go ahead and line it up with the rest of the board, flip it over and do it again on the bottom layer. But before you screw on the bottom layer, you want to make sure that if you want to use the typing angles, you do that first. To do so, very simple, very similar to what we were going to do with the top of the keyboard. You'll see 3 holes that are specifically made to fit those smaller acrylic pieces, and you're going to want to connect those before, again, you connect your bottom piece to your PCB. After that, you're just going to go through and tighten all 8 of those screws on each side just to make sure that it's all good, but I wouldn't over tighten it, because you got to remember it is acrylic and you don't want to damage it. So what do I think of this board aesthetically? I absolutely love it. I don't really know where this would fall on the keyboard level. I would say that this is somewhere between like the entry level, a little bit closer than the enthusiast, because we know not everybody's going to go out and buy this thing as their first keyboard. People aren't going to do it, but I'm telling you now, you can do it. It's not hard to put together, and if you're a little bit scared of the solder part, I would just grab a $20 or $30 soldering iron on Amazon. It's pretty easy to do. So I wouldn't let that stop you from trying a board like this, because it's not hard and the results are absolutely beautiful. In terms of the quality of the acrylic, I do think the acrylic quality is really high. There is very minimal rough edges on this board. The only one that I found was on the front left side of my keyboard, and I'm pretty sure, that's probably somewhere where the laser ended in terms of you know, when it's cutting through all the acrylic. And I didn't really think that it was that big of a deal because obviously I'm never grabbing that part of the keyboard. I'm just typing on the keys, so it's not really that steep. But it's something that I would like to see maybe smoothed out a little bit in the future, but it's not really that big of a deal, and it wouldn't change my personal buying decision. The next thing I would say that I would possibly change about the case is that the acrylic on the sides of the case, I kind of do wish was frosted, just like the top and bottom pieces. I think that that would look pretty sweet if it was, but after staring at it for a while, I actually kind of grown to like the fact that the acrylic on the sides isn't frosted. Like, you get a nice look inside of your keyboard. You can see all the components fairly clearly, and I think it looks pretty good. I don't really mind it as much, but I would prefer if it was frosted on the sides. What I do want to see available in the future though is a hot swap PCB option, not because I don't like soldering, but more so because I would love it if I could try out more switches easier with this board. A couple things I thought I would mention as well. This keyboard does have a fixed layout because all of the acrylic pieces are all cut for a specific layout. You're just going to have a standard bottom row with the 6.25 U spacebar, as well as the 3 keys on both sides for your Control, Alt, Function, and Windows keys, which I'm perfectly fine with. I don't mind because standard layout is typically what I like to use, but maybe one of these days I'll buy a board that does support a 7U spacebar. But if it's possible, and some people do want to use a 7U spacebar and a couple of smaller unit keys, I will say that maybe in the future come out with a version that does have a freer layout in terms of the bottom row. All right, so in terms of my part selection, I went with the banana split switches. In terms of the Krytox situation, I don't think that Krytox 205 grade 0 really belongs on banana split switches. I feel like it mutes it just a little bit too much, so I don't really love the way that they sound when that Krytox is applied. And to be honest, I wish I just would have kept them stock. They sound so good, so nice and crisp, but I understand that some of you guys might not like that nicer, louder, crispier sound from the banana split stock. These are a little bit deeper and thockier now that the Krytox has kind of tamed the banana split, which is a little unfortunate. I was really hoping that it would be a bit louder, but the Krytox muted it just a bit. The Mosrey stabilizers, they're pretty decent. They are moderately smooth, but I wouldn't say that they're a better alternative to the Duroc V2s or even the Zeal PC stabilizers. Both of those are definitely superior to the Mosreys, but I feel comfortable putting them at the number 3 spot because they are better than cherry screw and stabs, and probably a lot better than a few other stabs as well that are a little bit on the cheaper side. And with that being said, let's talk about the Stellar 12, but first let's hear how the Stellar 12 sounds with those Aqua/Water King V3 switches from Everglide. I don't know if it's Aqua or Water or both. Aqua just water in Spanish. Obviously. You get the point. Let's listen to them real quick and see what we think. But for those of us who miss having a number pad or just want a nice macro pad on our desk, the Stellar 12 I think is a really nice option as well. So again, if you guys are new with soldering and you want to pick up both the Stellar 12 and 65, I would definitely practice my soldering on the Stellar 12 first and then try your hand at the Stellar 65. It's not hard. I think you can learn how to do it. I'll even leave a soldering kit in the description below in case you want to try it for yourself so you know which one to get, because that's actually the first kit that I used to do my first build successfully. So if I can do it, I'm pretty sure that you guys can do it too. The Stellar series of keyboard and macro pad I think are a really good value for $85 for the Stellar 12 and $180 for the Stellar 65. I think that is actually a pretty good combo for under 300 bucks. You got to buy your own stabs and stuff, so you know your all-in board cost may vary depending on the switches and keycaps and all the good stuff that you decide to get. But by this point in custom keyboards, we all know what to expect. You can spend as little as you want, you can spend as much as you want, but in terms of the sound that a stacked acrylic board offers you is a bit deeper sound, a little bit more rigid experience, but in a good way. It's not too rigid, but I do feel like it is a decent amount of rigidity. But overall, in terms of the stacked acrylic board experience, the build process, pretty easy, to be honest. It's easier than I thought it would be. The sound profile is going to be a little bit deeper than a keyboard that has a lot of space. You're going to really get a little bit more of that muted key switch sound, and it sounds like you're hitting each key, and it's just a little bit more isolated than if your case had more resonance in it. And I actually kind of like that quite a bit, where we have a case that has very little resonance and very tight tolerances. It's a really nice experience. Like, this is a lot higher quality experience than I thought it would be, and I'm very impressed with it. Make a TKL for everybody with hot swap. That would be excellent. Thank you in advance. 8 months from now. That's gonna be it for this video. If you guys enjoy, feel free to drop a like, subscribe if you guys are new to the channel as well. I know this video was probably a little long-winded, but I hope you guys thoroughly enjoyed it. Don't forget to check out the Stellar 12 and 65 link in the description below, as well as Prevail Key Company for sending over those Mosrey stabs. But I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks again for watching.